What happens when the most arrogant man in America meets the most fearless leader in Africa? What happens when Donald Trump tries to treat a head of state like his personal servant? What happens when someone finally tells Trump exactly where he can stick his colonial attitude? This is the story of a phone call that lasted 12 minutes and changed everything. A conversation that exposed Trump's racist mindset to the world. A moment when Ibrahim Traoré, the youngest president on earth, taught the former president of the United States that some people will never bow down to bullies. But what Trump said on that call wasn't just disrespectful. It wasn't just insulting. It was so outrageous, so shocking, so incredibly stupid that when the recording leaked, it ended Trump's political relationships with an entire continent forever. And the best part? Ibrahim recorded every single word. Let me tell you exactly what happened on March 22, 2024, at 3:47 p.m., the day Donald Trump learned that not everyone in the world is afraid of his tantrums. The day a 35-year-old African revolutionary made a 78-year-old American bully sound like a crying child. This isn't just politics. This is pure satisfaction. This is justice served cold. This is what happens when karma has a name, and that name is Ibrahim Traoré. The call wasn't supposed to happen. Trump's team had been trying to set up a conversation with Ibrahim for months, but the young president kept ignoring their requests. Why would the leader of Burkina Faso want to talk to a man who had spent years insulting Africa and calling African nations shithole countries? But Trump was desperate. His legal bills were mounting. His business empire was crumbling. His political future was hanging by a thread. He needed international allies, and he thought he could bully a young African leader into supporting him. Big mistake. Huge mistake. The kind of mistake that ends careers and destroys reputations. Trump's advisors warned him to be respectful. They told him to treat Ibrahim like the head of state he was. They reminded him that Burkina Faso had kicked out French forces, American military bases, and every other foreign power that tried to control them. But Trump being Trump, he ignored all advice. He walked into that phone call like he was about to discipline a misbehaving employee. He had no idea he was about to meet his match. The call started normally enough. Pleasantries were exchanged. Translators were introduced. But within 30 seconds, you could hear the tension building. Trump's voice had that condescending tone he uses when he thinks he's talking to someone beneath him. "Listen, kid," Trump said, his voice dripping with fake authority. "I know you're new to this president thing, but there are rules. There are ways things work in the real world." Ibrahim's response was calm, measured, dangerous. "Mr. Trump, I am not your employee. I am the elected leader of a sovereign nation. Please address me accordingly." But Trump wasn't listening. He was already launching into his prepared speech about American superiority, about how young leaders need to show respect to their elders, about how the world works according to American rules. That's when he said it. The words that would haunt him forever. "You need to understand something, Ibrahim. In this world, there are leaders and there are followers. There are those who command respect and those who give it. When you speak to someone like me, someone who has built an empire, someone who has been president of the United States, you show proper respect. You salute. You acknowledge your place." The line went quiet, dead quiet. For 15 seconds, nobody spoke. Ibrahim's advisors in the room looked at each other in shock. Trump's team held their breath, realizing their boss had just made a catastrophic error. Then Ibrahim spoke, and his voice was ice cold. Did you just order me to salute you?" Trump somehow doubled down. "That's how respect works, son. That's how the world operates. America built the modern world. America provides security for nations like yours. The least you can do is show some gratitude." What happened next will go down in history as one of the most savage verbal destructions ever recorded. Ibrahim's voice didn't rise. It didn't crack. It became quiet, controlled, lethal. "Mr. Trump," he said, "let me educate you about something. I am Ibrahim Traoré, president of Burkina Faso, captain in the National Army, and leader of a revolution that freed my people from French colonial control. I have never saluted anyone except my own flag and my own people." He paused, letting that sink in. "But more importantly, I am a 35-year-old man who commands the respect of 16 million Burkinabe citizens, while you are a 78-year-old man who is currently facing 91 criminal charges in your own country. The silence was deafening. So tell me, Mr. Trump, exactly who should be saluting whom? Trump's breathing became audible on the recording. Heavy, angry, frustrated breathing. He was trying to think of a comeback, trying to regain control of a conversation that had slipped completely out of his hands. But Ibrahim wasn't finished. Not even close. Since we're talking about respect, he continued, let me remind you of a few facts. Your country has military bases in 39 African nations. My country kicked yours out in 6 months. Your corporations have been exploiting African resources for decades. My government nationalized our gold mines and kept the profits for our people. Each word hit like a hammer blow. Your media calls African leaders strongmen and dictators, while calling you Mr. President, despite the fact that you lost your last election and refused to accept the results. So forgive me if I'm confused about who exactly has earned the right to demand salutes. Trump tried to interrupt, but Ibrahim's voice cut through like a blade. I'm not finished. The authority in those 3 words was absolute. Trump actually stopped talking. You want to talk about building empires? I built a revolution. You inherited money from your father and spent your entire life losing it in failed businesses and bankruptcy courts. You had a casino and somehow managed to lose money on gambling. You sold steaks and somehow failed at selling meat to Americans. Ibrahim's advisors in the room were trying not to laugh. Trump's team was frantically gesturing for him to hang up, but Trump was frozen, listening to the most comprehensive destruction of his ego he'd ever experienced. You want to talk about commanding respect? Your own party members call you an idiot behind your back. Your own advisors leak stories about your tantrums to the press. Your own vice president refused to overturn an election for you, and you tried to have him killed by an angry mob. The hits kept coming, each one more devastating than the last. You want to talk about leadership? I became president by serving my people. You became president by serving Russian interests and corporate donors. I fight terrorists with an AK-47 on the front lines. You fight criticism by posting angry messages on social media at 3 in the morning. By this point, Trump was making small, angry noises, but he couldn't form coherent words. He was being systematically destroyed by someone half his age who had done more for his country in 2 years than Trump had done for America in 4. But Ibrahim saved the best for last. And you want to talk about saluting? The only person I've ever seen you salute was Kim Jong-un, the dictator of North Korea. So perhaps before you demand that African leaders salute you, you should explain to the American people why you bow down to communist dictators while expecting democratically elected leaders to treat you like a king. The line went completely silent. Trump's heavy breathing stopped. Even the background noise disappeared. It was as if the entire world was holding its breath, waiting to see how Trump would respond to the most thorough verbal annihilation in political history. When Trump finally spoke, his voice was small, defeated, pathetic. I don't think you understand. I'm Donald Trump. Ibrahim's response was immediate and final. Yes, Mr. Trump, I understand exactly who you are. You are a man who thinks his wealth entitles him to respect, his whiteness entitles him to obedience, and his nationality entitles him to deference. You are a relic of a colonial mindset that died 50 years ago everywhere except in your mind. He paused for effect. But most importantly, you are a man who just demanded that the president of a sovereign African nation salute you like a servant. And that tells me everything I need to know about your character, your intelligence, and your fitness for any position of leadership. And then came the line that would echo around the world. Mr. Trump, the only thing I will ever give you is this advice. Learn the difference between respect and fear. Respect is earned through service, sacrifice, and strength. Fear is what weak men use when they have nothing else to offer. Your presidency was built on fear. My presidency is built on love for my people. He let that sit for a moment. So no, Mr. Trump, I will not salute you. I will not bow to you. I will not show you deference you have not earned. But I will show you something you've probably never seen before. What a real leader sounds like when he's not afraid of bullies. And then Ibrahim Traoré hung up. The call ended. 12 minutes and 37 seconds of pure destruction. The most comprehensive dismantling of Donald Trump's ego ever recorded. A masterclass in how to handle bullies. A perfect example of what happens when someone finally says no to a man who has never heard that word from someone he couldn't fire. But the story doesn't end there, because within hours the recording leaked. Nobody knows who released it. Some say it was someone from Trump's team who was disgusted by what they heard. Others think it was Ibrahim himself, making sure the world knew exactly what kind of man Trump really was. But whoever did it, they changed everything. The audio hit social media like a nuclear bomb. Within 6 hours, it had been shared 10 million times. Within 12 hours, it was trending in every country on Earth. Within 24 hours, it had become the most viral political audio in history. The reactions were immediate and brutal. African leaders who had remained neutral on Trump suddenly spoke out against him. European allies who had maintained diplomatic relationships started questioning their positions. Even Republicans who had supported Trump began distancing themselves from his comments. But the most devastating reactions came from ordinary Americans who heard their former president demand that a foreign leader salute him like a servant. Veterans groups issued statements condemning Trump's understanding of military respect. Civil rights organizations called it evidence of his racist worldview. Foreign policy experts said it was the most diplomatically damaging recording in American history. The hashtag #SaluteThis started trending worldwide. Memes flooded the internet showing Ibrahim in military uniform next to Trump in his golf clothes. Videos of the audio went viral with millions of views and comments supporting the young African president who had stood up to American arrogance. But perhaps the most powerful response came from Ibrahim himself. Instead of gloating, instead of attacking, he posted a simple message on social media that showed the difference between a leader and a bully. Leadership is not about demanding respect. It is about earning it through service to your people. Today, tomorrow, and always, Burkina Faso stands with dignity, independence, and love for all humanity. We salute no one except our own conscience and our own flag. The post received 50 million likes in 24 hours. It was shared by world leaders, celebrities, activists, and ordinary people who had never heard of Burkina Faso but recognized courage when they saw it. Meanwhile, Trump's response was exactly what you'd expect. He posted angry messages claiming the audio was fake. He called Ibrahim names. He threatened economic retaliation. He demanded that someone be arrested for releasing the recording. But for once, his tantrums fell flat. The audio was too clear, the context too obvious, the humiliation too complete. Even his most loyal supporters couldn't defend demanding that a head of state salute him like a servant. The political damage was immediate and severe. Republicans running for office started avoiding questions about Trump. Foreign leaders canceled meetings. Business partners reconsidered deals. The recording had exposed something so fundamentally wrong with Trump's worldview that even his allies couldn't spin it. But the real impact was cultural. For the first time, an African leader hadn't just criticized American foreign policy or questioned American actions. He had intellectually destroyed an American leader using nothing but facts, logic, and moral authority. Ibrahim had shown the world that respect isn't about power or wealth or military might. It's about integrity, service, and the courage to stand up for what's right, even when facing someone who thinks they're untouchable. The recording became required listening in political science classes. Diplomats studied it as an example of how to handle bullies. Young leaders around the world listened to it for inspiration when facing their own challenges with powerful adversaries. 6 months later, when Trump tried to run for president again, reporters at every campaign stop asked him about the salute comment. Every interview included questions about his demand for deference from foreign leaders. Every speech was interrupted by protesters shouting, "Salute this." The 12-minute phone call had become a 12-month nightmare that followed Trump everywhere he went. And every time someone brought it up, people remembered the voice of a young African president who had refused to bow down to a bully. Today, Ibrahim Traoré is more popular than ever. His approval ratings in Burkina Faso are over 90%. African leaders consult him on major decisions. Young revolutionaries around the world study his methods. He has become a symbol of dignity, independence, and the courage to speak truth to power. And Trump? He still posts angry messages about the fake recording. He still claims he never demanded anyone salute him. He still insists he was misunderstood. But everybody knows the truth. Everybody heard the audio. Everybody watched a 35-year-old African revolutionary teach a 78-year-old American bully that respect can't be demanded, dignity can't be bought, and some people will never, ever bow down to anyone. The phone call lasted 12 minutes. The lesson will last forever. Sometimes the most powerful response to a bully isn't violence or anger or revenge. Sometimes it's just the truth, spoken clearly and fearlessly by someone who refuses to be intimidated. Ibrahim Traoré didn't just refuse to salute Donald Trump. He showed the world what real leadership looks like. He demonstrated that courage isn't about having the biggest military or the most money. It's about standing up for what's right, even when facing someone who thinks they're untouchable. And in doing so, he gave hope to every young person, every underdog, every person who has ever been told to bow down to power they didn't respect. The recording ends with Ibrahim hanging up the phone. But the message continues every day in the life of a leader who chose dignity over deference, integrity over intimidation, and love for his people over fear of powerful enemies. That's what legendary looks like. That's what courage sounds like. That's what happens when someone finally tells a bully exactly where he can stick his demands for respect. If this story inspired you, share it with someone who needs to hear that standing up to bullies is not only possible, it's necessary. Like this video if you believe respect should be earned, not demanded. Subscribe if you want more stories of courage defeating cowardice, truth defeating lies, and dignity defeating arrogance. And remember, in a world full of people demanding that others bow down, be like Ibrahim Traoré. Stand up. Speak truth. Never salute anyone except your own conscience and your own flag. Because that's what real leaders do. And that's what legends are made of.